Hello and happy new year to everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Too Many Guys Soccer Show with Mike and Stead. But our esteemed host is still battling from New Year's, and it's gonna take a couple of days to get back on the mend. Mike, hope you're feeling all right, but he's gonna be sitting out this week. And due to the fact that today is a national holiday, it's January 2nd, but it's the first Monday after the new year, or the first full day after the new year. So we're going to actually have this show on a holiday. So we are going to be coming at you pretty short, pretty quickly, but just going to be me and Bundesliga Rob. We're going to just call him Bundesliga Rob this week, considering that his league is the only league that's yet to restart after the World Cup. So I'm going to shed a couple of tears, because I won't lie, I do actually enjoy watching Bundesliga games, especially when because they're always at like an off time. That's what I love about the Bundesliga games. Like they'll start at like 8:45 when when there's no Premier League on yet or something like that, and you can get sucked into one of their games. But Rob, how's it going? Happy New Year to you, brother.
Happy New Year. It's going well for me. I'm missing the Bundesliga. We got about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks to go. I'm seeing all the EPL fans, love talking about like their clubs, and they already had 2 matches already since, and I'm here like I'm like the Pablo Escobar meme, just like waiting for my league to start. I had no idea where my Bayern shirts are. They're like somewhere in the closet. They're buried. So like they're probably collecting dust because I haven't put them on in like forever.
Yeah.
So I had to dig out because I wanted to feel a part of a league that's still going on. I had to put in my Ipswich Town shirt because I'm sure they're playing. They probably played 4 matches already. so yeah. So no, I'm good. New year. Not new us, better us. That's what I say.
Agreed 100%. Well, before, I think we're actually going to talk about that, because it's Bundesliga is known for taking this winter holiday break and making sure that they don't actually saturate us with too many games, too many players at so soon after the Christmas holiday. But we do have to talk about the sad, but I will say relatively expected passing of Edson Arantes do Nascimento, otherwise known as Pele, who passed this past week at the age of 82 on December 29th. He had been battling cancer for quite a while. He'd been in a wheelchair for a number of years off and on. And while I'm still insanely jealous of the fact that he still had a full head of black hair, he was obviously, deteriorating, which comes with old age. And but to say that he is not one of, if not the most iconic athlete of the 20th century would be false. I remember at the turn of the century, ESPN did a top 100 athletes. And of course, being American centric, one thing I wish American media would do is not necessarily say that they are the best athletes of the 20th century, but the best athletes as far from the United States perspective, because Pele was not even in the top 5, which I found to be quite obnoxious. But he, I'd love to get your take, Rob, and I'm sure we'll talk about this again at greater detail. Actually, not greater detail, in further detail when the other guys return to the show next week, about what he brought to the game, and as far as how he was as an icon of sport in the middle, I'd say in the second half of the 20th century, essentially from 1958 until, I would say, today.
Oh man, so legendary. He's done so much. I know people will knock him because he never went to Europe, and we had this mentality these days where an athlete has to go to Europe, you have to play in the best leagues. But Pele didn't do that. He stayed in Brazil for most of his career, and won 3 World Cups, which is insane. Was the original showman. Almost every trick that people do today that we take for granted, came from that time period. It came from him. I know the Brits like to talk about how they brought soccer to our country, and that might be true. Like we played in the World Cup in the 30s and all that, but I think soccer really, really arrived when Pele came over here with the Cosmos. And because of that, he will always be part of American soccer history. And the Cosmos will be as well. This star, the original Galacticos. We talk about Real Madrid and getting all those top players, but the New York Cosmos were in that mold, and Pele was the biggest prize, and he still brought it. Like at an advanced age, he still had so much talent.
Packing Giant Stadium. Packing it out, 75,000 in the 70s,
Yeah, no,
game of all things.
Exactly. Like the Seattle Sounders take their stadium attendance for granted. They filled the stadium, right? But the original packed football stadium to watch football, or the world's football, or association football, was Giant Stadium in the New York Cosmos. So I will miss Pele. He's one of those iconic figures. He transcended sport. Worldwide, I think he was a worldly person. He did so much for country and club and countries, I should say, because he did it for America. And yeah, the world will miss him. But luckily there's so much video of him at World Cups that we'll be able to marvel at those. And at least for those who believe in heaven and everything, at least you got Maradona. Hopefully, we don't know if he's in heaven, but we got Maradona and Pele together. And they really respected each other too.
Absolutely,
they did. That was beautiful. I posted a video in the chat of Maradona and Pele like heading the ball to each other on the talk show. That was pretty neat. Like I never saw that video before. Very, very awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Pele is also the person that like the first name that comes out of a soccer player for most people. The people who probably watch a lick, no, not a lick of soccer, just saw it in passing, they know who Pele is, and that's how much he transcended the sport. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I totally agree. The Fox broadcast for the World Cup, I'm sure I've said on multiple occasions, was not the best from my perspective, because you knew you were going to hear one name multiple times through every broadcast. But that was mainly because that was the only player that I think everybody paid the least bit of attention to sport in the 60s, 70s, and 80s in the United States knew who Pele was. And as a kid growing up playing in the United States, where your coach was probably somebody's dad who had no idea how to play either, but that was the one name they would throw out constantly was Pele. I had so many coaches who you could tell they were kicking the ball with their toe, didn't really know what they were doing, but they were out there volunteering their time to let us kids run around and try to learn the game as best we could. But that was the one player that we knew. I didn't know Pele was black until I was about, 13. So all you heard was the name. That's all you had. It was the name. But it was to talk about him as an icon is another thing, because I can say that he was so great. He's probably the first great athlete at marketing himself. He was so good at the brand of Pele. He was so good at making sure that he stayed involved in the game in a manner that allowed him to continue to further his brand and market the game throughout the world in a positive manner, but also keep sure of the fact that everyone knew that I'm still the best. I'm still the best player. I'm still the greatest player. Not necessarily doing it so much as in a fully boastful way, but you could tell he still wanted everyone to know what he was able to accomplish. And that by doing that, by marketing himself like that, I think that really influenced a lot of athletes who came after the 50s and 60s, early 60s, because you got to say, after the 62 Cup, when he was injured, he even said that after the 66 Cup, he was considering retiring from international football then. So really, he was on his way out as the money in sport really started to explode, but yet he was at the forefront of it. He didn't go to Europe because he couldn't. The country wouldn't let him go. I mean, unfortunately, there was a dictatorship going on in Brazil at the time, and they were very clear: you are not leaving. You have to stay here. And yeah, did he miss out on possibly some greater competition? Of course, but don't forget too that also his Santos club went and toured Europe on multiple occasions, and they consistently beat the teams that were in Europe that were trying to sign him. They were knocking him out, and he was the star. He was getting off the bus, and they were all there to see him play, because even though he was playing in Sao Paulo, they all knew who the greatest player in the world was. And so I think that is what really shows him as an icon of sport, is the fact that he was from not just this, he's from a large country, but he's from South America. 90% of the population live in North America, or sorry, live in the Northern Hemisphere. And he was, his seasons are different, and also he didn't, he spoke Portuguese, so he didn't speak English, German, Spanish, kind of like the big languages that you hear throughout the world, especially at that time. He was a native Brazilian. So all of those things just kind of came into play in the way he was able to market himself as this superstar athlete at a game that is played all over the world, but I'm going to be one of the biggest stars in a country that doesn't even play the game. Like that was amazing. He was on commercials and stuff back in the 80s, or back in the early 90s, in the 80s. He was on commercials. He was selling Coca-Cola or whatever. He was selling Subway sandwiches with Freddie Adu back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I remember. Classic.
Yeah. So and let's not forget, he was in his late 50s, early 60s, and he was still running around kicking the ball. So to say that we lost a major figure in sport is, I still think, an understatement. And he will be sorely missed.
And the one thing I loved, he's so revered that FIFA let him come up with 100 best athletes or players list.
Mm-hmm.
And there's legends on there, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
Including himself, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite part of that list, people don't know about it really, is that there's 2 players from the USA on there, and they're both women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Michelle Akers and Mia Hamm.
Yeah.
So it's the very fact that he recognized, that greatness, was kind of neat.
Yeah.
But that his word and his opinion is so valued that FIFA said, this is the FIFA 100 is made by Pele. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So
and he said, I want to do 125, and they went, okay, go ahead, you can do 125. There's 125 players on there. And he did include them, but also that was at kind of like the emergence of women's soccer, women's football. So it was good that he included those 2 names. Even personally, I don't think that was. I didn't agree with that move, because I think the women's game deserves its own attention, and to not lump 2 of the most famous women in with a bunch of dudes, I'm kind of like, I don't know. I thought that wasn't the right platform, but I understand why. I understand why it was done, and I do think it was important. And moving forward, I think now you could easily make a top 50 women's players of all time. In that, don't forget, that was only 20 years ago, and you could easily make a top 50 of all of greatest. And you know what? And they won't all be Americans either, because that's one thing you don't want to see. It's just like all the women players are all American. Like, come on.
True, very true.
Yes, the Americans dominate women's soccer, but to say they don't have competition from several parts of the world, let's not forget the only World Cup to be won in Asia was by Japan, and that was their women. So it was great to see, though, that was included, even if my snarky self doesn't always agree. I understand. I appreciate it. So yeah, I mean, we'll talk more about him as the seasons progress, and I'm sure we're going to continue to see more and more. I mean, luckily we got kind of like the last 10 years, we got a slew of documentaries and some movies. One of them was a really bad movie on Netflix. I forgot what it's called, but it's about the '58 World Cup and him growing up and kicking coconuts around, and then him getting picked and getting hurt and playing in the '58 final against Sweden. But there's another documentary that came out. I guess it came out about 5 years ago. I think it's Pele, Birth of a Legend. I think that's what it was. That one was. I think that's the one.
That's the one. That's when it came out.
That one was good. I appreciated that one.
Yeah, it came out about 6 years ago almost.
Yeah, that was a good one. I actually liked it. He was also in as an old war movie. I remember watching this movie when I was a kid called Victory. And it has, they're all prisoners of war in a German Nazi camp. It's a World War II flick, and it's a bunch of Englishmen, and there's this one American guy who we have to get him out of here. He's got to escape from this camp. We got to get him out of here. And so they basically make him the goalie. And of course, he just doesn't know a thing about soccer. He knows nothing. But they have a lot of I'm gonna look this up real quick. So I gotta see who was actually on who starred in this movie, because there was a lot of
Michael Caine was in it.
Michael Caine was the lead, but there were a lot of players that were also in this
Bobby
movie.
Moore was there.
Yeah, Pele was in that movie.
Ozzy from Spurs and Argentina.
Yeah. So there were quite a few players of the day that were featured in that movie. I remember they said that Pele's character was a soldier from Trinidad and Tobago. who happened to be captured on this, and he, the ball rolls over to him. He starts juggling, and they're like, "Oh, you're good. You should come play with us." That's a terrible movie. It's bad. But they end up winning the shootout 5-4. Sylvester Stallone makes some save at the end, but it's and then the camp. I think the guy who ran the camp loved football, and he knew we had football players on there, so he still wanted to have them play games and stuff. It's if you want to, I say it's bad. It's probably not that bad. I found it quite humorous. But if you want to see Pele flex his acting chops, that's a movie. I think it came out. When did it come out? I think it came out in the 80s, I think.
No, it came out.
Yeah, 81.
There 81,
81. Yeah. Okay.
Rated PG, by the way, so you can watch it with your children.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's the first time I saw somebody do a rainbow. Pele hit a bicycle kick in a game. He was injured and hit a bicycle kick.
Oh my goodness.
But
we'll miss him, man. We'll miss him, but there's so much video of him because like you said, he marketed himself. He went everywhere. He was involved in so much, and so there's plenty of memories of him around. So yeah, but it was a sad day, sad time. Two of the greatest players, arguably, not here no more.
Yeah, in a very short amount of time. Yeah, just like in a year and a half. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Very sad. Hopefully they're, if you do believe in heaven and they're up there having a kick about, and Bobby George Best is up there with him too, so hopefully they're continuing to entertain as they always have. You got to appreciate that. So I think we'll go ahead and move on here, but I don't know, Rob. What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about the Bundesliga break right now? Do you want to talk about some games? What do you think? Because
look, I'll talk some Bundesliga.
All right, because look, this is my thing. Let me lead you here a little bit. You've talked about this before on the show about this winter break and how it's good. It's a good thing. I mean, we all can agree that, at least from the perspective of players and safety and this time of year and being with your families and stuff like that, yes, it's a good break. But let's talk about this year in particular, because don't forget we had a World Cup wedged in between the last time the Bundesliga played, and I would venture to say that most Bundesliga players do not play for World Cup teams. So you have a situation where you have players who have not played a competitive game that actually carry some level of weight since November the 13th, 12th or 13th. And we're now sitting there January 2nd, and they're not going to play again until January 21st. So, Rob, if you could run with that, that's a long time. And these teams are still in Europe.
It's long. There's a couple of teams that did a tour during the World Cup, around the World Cup. I think Cologne came over, Leverkusen came over as well. So that's kind of neat. But we had this long break. But the problem here's the problem. The problem is that when the Bundesliga comes back, they're playing two games a week. So the Bayern starts, for example, Bayern's the first one. They start on a Friday. Then they play on a Tuesday, on Saturday. Then they have the Pokal on a Wednesday. So guess what? Anybody who's still in the Pokal gets to play. And then so they have a bunch of English weeks coming up. That's going to be tough on them. But I love the break just because, in general, like on a non-World Cup in the fall year, which is almost never. It's great. Everybody recharges. Everybody goes home, relaxes, could go on a proper vacation, and then come back and be rested. And for the German clubs who are still in Europe, and there's quite a few of them, besides Bayern, this is important because now you're fully rested. You have a nice little vacation. You're ready to go. And because of that, you might be healthier when, come February, when Europe comes back, when Champions League, Europa, and Europa Conference comes back. So it's good for the league. It's good for the clubs. But for the fans, we have major FOMO. We see all you guys and your Arsenal and your Palaces and your Uniteds, hooting and hollering about your games. And, we're just sitting here, we're like, just waiting for games, we're watching, we're watching, Erling Haaland make the Premier League, the Farmers League, with his oldest scoring.
Yeah.
He didn't score that much in Germany, to tell you that.
It's a little insane. It's a little insane.
He's he's gonna break the record
Yeah.
in like 5 matches.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be just it's a video game, but
Mhm.
I'm excited for the league to come back. Camp started today for some teams. A bunch of them are in Spain. A couple of them, well, one of them's in the UAE and Abu Dhabi. Bayern are in Qatar, Doha, Qatar specifically, for hopefully the last time. The sponsorship runs out, by the way, this year. FYI, the Qatar Airways sponsorship. So it's a good thing, but I'm missing football. I'm missing German football. Let's be frank. I mean, I'm watching football, but I'm missing German football. It's nothing like the German atmosphere. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm flying out there this fall to go catch a game in England. And I was looking at how I was on a YouTube rabbit hole, and this English guy was like, you know what? I got my passport in my pocket with me. I'm just gonna go fly to Berlin. So he goes to the airport, goes to Heathrow, gets a ticket, flies to Berlin, hangs out in Berlin for about 3 hours, gets a plane, flies back to London the same day. So I'm sitting here going, okay, look, and he went to Berlin. That's a bit further east than you really have to go to catch a game. You come closer to come further west and be having even shorter flights. So I was sitting there going, you know what? I said I was going to go to see like a lower league games, and I do want to watch my boys play, but they're only gonna play once. And so I was like, I can make a trip out of this where if I had to pick, I could go watch a game in, you could maybe watch a game in Belgium or the Netherlands, Spain, Portugal, France. I've seen a game in France. It's okay. It was fun. It was fun, but it's still, you guys heard me. I haven't been the biggest league cheerleader over the years. Especially because I went and saw PSG when they weren't any good. This is free, oil money PSG. But I was like, I can hop on a plane. I could just fly over there, watch a game, and fly back probably that night. I think I might have to do that. And I'm going to credit you for that, Rob, because you have been telling us that we need to pay more attention to the Bundesliga. And because of COVID, we had to, because they came back so early. So I got drawn in, of course. And as I was saying before, their game started at 9:30. And if there's a 10 o'clock game that's Premier League, that's not the most exciting, I'll end up watching the German game. You're muted.
I'm sorry. There you go.
No, it's all good.
So the good thing about Berlin is you have a bunch of options. You got Union and you got Hertha. If you want to go top division, and there's a whole bunch of other smaller teams over there.
Yeah.
Which is kind of neat. Don't forget you got Hamburg if you're somewhere close. But no, those flights are cheap. If you want to go really cheap, just go Ryanair.
Ryanair, $25, man. Yeah,
that's right. Pay for the bathroom though.
Yeah.
No, it's a good league. And especially for Hertha game, you'll find tickets because they can't sell out the stadium. Okay. The stadium is too big and
it's massive. It's a massive stadium. Yeah.
And Hertha are just not the greatest either, so they won't fill it. They really only fill it for the Pokal final for the most part.
Okay. Yeah.
No, it's a good shout. You should definitely do it. It's on my list to do Berlin. London, I mean, I definitely want to go to the UK and London specifically. But it's so because how many airports are in London? There's two or three.
I think there's three. Yeah.
There you go. You have options. You have a lot of options to go to Germany and watch a game and stay for a day and come right back.
Yeah.
You're good. Or you take the train.
Yeah, or you take the train. Yeah.
It'd be fancy. Take the bullet train.
Yeah. Well, you inspired me because I was like, man, I was telling my wife about your Cutter trip, and she's looking at me like, why don't you ever do something like that? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I think recently I haven't thought about it because my kids were little, but that can be little forever. And so I was like, yeah, you're right. She's like, you should just go do that. Say like, hey, you'll be gone for a week or something. Go. Stay at a hospital, get a room somewhere, and just, go check out a couple games and then come back. I was like, yeah, I might do that.
Yeah,
to do
no,
that.
it's a good idea. Like traveling for this sport has been amazing.
Yeah, and I've never done that. I've never traveled for this sport. I mean, I've traveled all over the place, but not for the sport. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, no, it's a different vibe. Like you'll get addicted to it too.
Yeah.
You just see different people, like, and if they say like, "Oh, you're an American," you're like, "Oh," they're like, "Oh my god," they have questions, right? They're like, "Well, first they'll probably be like, why do you call it soccer?" Number one.
Yeah. Which I
Um,
have an answer for.
yeah, like we'll be like, you know what? Thank you, England or
Yeah.
British or the
Yeah,
Brits,
it's
but
your fault. You're the one told us to call it this.
but then at the same time, like they know like that you mean business. You're like you really must love the sport. You took a flight over the pond
Right.
to make it. But no,
Yep.
for those who listening, I highly suggest traveling for the sport by plane, by train, or by car. Just go find find a club you like, or even you don't like them, but you like the area.
Mm-hmm.
Just see what the atmosphere is.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be Premier League. It doesn't have to be top Bundesliga. It could be Bundesliga 2.
Yeah.
It could be the championship.
Yeah,
Hell,
I
it
said I
could be
wanted. I wanted
Wrexham.
to go to a championship or a League One game. I was like, I got to go to one of those games because people I know who actually live out there, who they'll say like a lot of the local people prefer championship to Premier League because like with Premier League, you kind of know what's going to happen. You know who's going to win. You know who's going to lose. It's basically there's not a lot of drama in comparison to the championship where it's like, you know, you might you're more likely to get the Sheffield Derby. You know what I mean? Like you're more likely to get these neighborhoods that have their clubs that are playing against each other, and they just said it's a better atmosphere. It's like more laid back, but like the people are more passionate. But you don't have like security everywhere. There's not a whole lot of like corporate nonsense going on. So it's just a little bit more chill, and you got more drama with the league. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna have to go do that. Check out like a League One because even the championship at some point, you got like 5 or 6 teams in the championship that are like, we're not championship teams, we're Premier League teams. We're just here for now. Whereas League One, a lot of those teams just like, they're just trying to stay afloat, looking to get promoted, sell you a meat pie to beer, have a good time. I think that would be a great experience to do.
Yeah, I know. Like teams like Watford and West Brom, they're like we're too good for the championship.
Yeah,
But they're
yeah.
not, but yeah, but there they
Why y'all
are.
can't keep a coach, man?
Exactly. Sheffield United are going back up apparently. We'll see. No, but there, I think in the championship things are a lot more even. There's a lot more, parity. I
Mhm,
think
mhm,
things are closer, the table's closer, and
mhm.
and you can hear all about it when Mike does his lower league reports.
Yep.
They're
You were
just
just posted this morning.
it's just chaos. It just you
Yeah.
hear every and the thing about the championship is it doesn't have 18 teams, it doesn't have 20, it has 24. So it's more chaos. It's
Yep.
chaos, and by the time you recover from the chaos, it's chaos all over again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you can just walk up to the stadium and buy a ticket. You don't have to plan in advance. You don't have to have a seat. You just go, hey, you guys have tickets up together. You go. go have fun. Don't sit with the wrong team. Don't sit in the team support section. But as you said, like as an American, if you're going up there as an American, they're gonna probably be like, yo, come hang with us, come hang with me. But on the flip side too, I was at Washington football game, and there were 3 English guys sitting behind me. And I was like, and because they weren't Redskins fans, they were all Tennessee Titans fans. So I just turned around. I was like, hey, out of all the teams in the United States that I could see overseas people pulling for, Tennessee Titans is the one of them. You know what I mean? You expect it to be maybe like Patriots or Giants, and even Washington, simply because of the people who are in and out of this area, or Miami or LA or something like that. But I was like, Tennessee Titans, really? So I turned around and asked him. One of the guys was happened to be living in Tennessee for like a year with his with his job, with his company, went to 2 football games with some locals there and got hooked. Flew back home to England, brought 2 of his buddies out to a Tennessee Titans game in Nashville. They watched the games there. And they said that they knew they were going to be in DC, and they had to come to DC, and they saw that the Titans were coming. So they changed their trip so they could come to watch the Titans game. They knew more about the Titans football than I knew about Redskins football. So I couldn't help. I missed half the games. I just kept talking to these dudes. They were so fascinating. And then one guy saw my phone because I had an Arsenal plaque on my phone. So he was, of course, hating on me the whole time because he was a Liverpool fan. He was killing me the whole time, but I had a blast. Hung out with him in the parking lot afterwards. So yeah, I know what you mean. Having seen that experience from the host perspective, I'd love to go out there and get that experience from like the person that like, oh, okay, you're coming out here to check us out, man. We're gonna make sure you have a good time.
They must love the tailgating scene. Like, yeah, because they're like they all the football stadiums in the UK, they're not really parking lots where you can do that.
You gotta take public transport to get there. You walk exactly. To the pub or something, yeah.
But here, for most NFL stadiums, it's tailgate galore. Everyone's all grilling and it's a party. Like where people are there like 5 hours before the kickoff. And you've had like 2 meals already, and you don't have that in soccer over there. Over here, it's like they're very different.
Yeah, absolutely. I went and tailgated because we thought we were having a 1 o'clock game, and it was flexed to the 8 o'clock game. So this is a number of years ago. They still open the gates at 9 o'clock. They let you in at 9. Yep. We tailgated for like 10 hours. We were sitting out there. And I was like, look, I'm not going to drink for a while. I got to pace myself because we're going to be out here. I'm going to be fast asleep before the first quarter even starts. But yeah, the tailgating scene, I mean, it was crazy. The cool thing was people were coming and going. People were just kind of like, you could go, you come back in. And granted, where that was in this part of the country, there really isn't much outside of the stadium. But yeah, I'm sure it was a blast. I actually tailgated before a Real Madrid DC United soccer game. For it was preseason for Real Madrid. They flew over. Ronaldo was still playing for them, and they're playing. And I think they had
the RFK.
No, it was at the horrible stadium, the FedEx Field. It was there.
Okay.
And did Arjen Robben play for Real Madrid at one point?
Yeah,
I feel like he did. Yeah,
he did for a couple of years.
Yeah, he was on the team at that time too.
He had hair then a little bit.
Yeah, he did. He was struggling. I was like, bro, it's done.
Yeah,
man.
It's done.
I knew it was done for me when I was in my 20s, man. I was like, I'm done. Let me just get this off. But that was a great experience because there was a lot of Real Madrid supporters, especially with the Latino community in this neighborhood, in this area. There's a lot of Real Madrid support. But I went as a United fan. I was like, I'm a DC United fan. I'm coming. And I hung out with all these Real Madrid cats for like 2 hours before the game. I actually bought a date with me. I feel bad because I didn't really pay her much attention, but how could I? I mean, the atmosphere was amazing. I was like, this is so cool. She actually had a good time too. And that was a fun game too because it got in there. United Real Madrid scores early, and then United scores before half. So it's 1-1 at halftime. I was like, oh, we're hanging with them. And then second half, Real Madrid scored like 5, and that was game. But that was a fun experience. That was probably the only time I've ever actually tailgated at a soccer game. Actually, no, I used to tailgate at United games when they were at RFK, but that was the first time I tailgated like at Real Madrid, kind of like a European thing, just seeing all the support there. That was a lot of fun.
They're a blast. It's probably the one thing I hate about Audi Field. There's no tailgating really.
Yeah, agreed.
So for those of you who love DC United or love the Raccoons that were at RFK. The one thing about the RFK was the tailgating.
It was.
It
was.
And it was great.
Having been to games at both places, I can say I probably had more fun at RFK than I had at Audi Field. Now, granted, RFK was also a stadium that I was afraid that a concrete block was going to fall off of the scaffolding and land on my head walking through that place because it was in such poor shape. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I had a lot of fun going to DC, and I actually had seats. I was gifted these seats, me and a buddy, from a family that used to teach their kids, and he comes up and he's like, hey, you guys need to bring 2 of your friends. He gave us 4 seats. It's like, all right. So we had these passes. Walk in, of course, you got you got the food, the club level kind of stuff, the free drinks, everything like that. But we can't find our seats. So we start walking around trying to find our seats, looking at our tickets. And so I find an usher and I was like, excuse me, do you know where these seats are? He's like, yeah, you got to go down the stairs that way. They're right down there. So I was like, oh, okay. So we're right up in the stands right there. So walking up and I'm looking and my buddy's looking and he's like, I don't see our seats. So he goes to an usher and he's like, excuse me, ma'am, do you know where these seats are? And she says, yes, sir, right this way. And she opens the gate and we walked onto the field. So you know the barrier that goes around the RFK, they had that barrier. Yeah, we were sitting behind that barrier about 2 yards off the field. So like the players would like they're doing throw-ins, they're right there. And so like during the game, the ball bounces. My buddy catches the ball, gets up and hands to Jeff Agus, who was throwing the ball. He handed it to him, and then Jeff threw it in. You know, that was like they don't have those seats at Audi Field. That was crazy. And they had free food and beer right there on the side. You just walk into a cooler and they just gave you food and water. Or sorry, give you beer and water right there. It's like that was one of the best gaming experiences I ever had. I did it 3 times too. Like because the tickets weren't that expensive either. When you consider what you got for it, it really wasn't that expensive. You're sitting literally on the field. You can hear the players talking to each other. I heard 5 different languages during that game alone.
Yeah, no, it was those are good times, but sadly they're gone.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, just switching back to the footy here, you know, what's not gone is all the freaking fixtures that we had in the Premier League.
Yeah.
It's been chaos.
It has been absolute chaos.
I mean, like, and your Arsenal has a big game tomorrow, by the way. Huge game.
Huge game.
Like as Newcastle, who are
the biggest game since Manchester United, absolutely.
Who are all of a sudden are like a threat to make Europe. Like, when did this happen?
Yeah.
Did the Saudi money really work that quick?
It's, you know, I think in the back of our minds, we wish it wouldn't work. You wish it wouldn't work, but sadly it does. And we're sitting here looking at a squad that was built in the past few months, actually. I mean, they haven't been there very long. They haven't been in charge very long. And you're looking at a team that appears to be on the verge of finishing top 4. I don't think anybody would be surprised if they did. And while they haven't overhauled the squad, it's definitely now they're going to attract top talent because Newcastle isn't in the best part of England. It gets dark up there. It's cold. It's not the most diverse place. You know, it's very Newcastle. But what do you have there that they got money? They
talk funny because they have a lot of Scottish accents up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that surprises me, it is a surprise. One thing that surprises me about Newcastle is who is scoring for them.
Yeah.
MLS made.
I was just about
from
to
Atlanta
say that,
United, Miguel Almiron. I mean,
he's playing his tail off right now.
Yeah, like I thought like he was going to go there. He's going to be a nice little role player, come off the bench a little bit here and there, start for cup matches, And it sort of looked like it was going that direction for a little bit, but this year he's found it. He has found he has found like everything. He put it all together. It's almost like he got used to the league. And then Isaac from Sweden, who Dortmund had at one point. I don't know why they let him go.
Yeah,
Fools, playing well. So they just, I don't know. Did they just needed to get rid of like their owner? Who is it?
Well, Mike Ashley. It appears so.
The Stead is gone.
Yeah, but you're seeing great play not just from Almiron. Yes. He was player of the month in October. He's going to be on. I think he's going to be on team of the year this year. He is probably. It's for the position he plays. It's him or Bukayo Saka. They'll probably pick Saka, but he's having a fantastic season, and yes, I am very, very happy for him. But we're also seeing, I kind of feel bad for some of the guys who've been there. Like John Joe Shelby's still on the squad. He's not getting any. He's not seeing the field. And we all remember. I think for me, I still liked remember the Amiobi days where they had Shola and Sammy and all of them were on the squad, and you had this kind of team that the fans loved because they didn't always win, but they played really, 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 really hard.
Yeah.
And then when you saw it as Mike Ashley was trying to get out, you saw the fans were not supporting the team. The team players were deliberately playing poorly to try to get out of the squad. I mean, it was a complete disarray. But I pick up Joe Willock from Arsenal. That was a good move. He's playing well for them. Joe Linton's playing well, even though he's not scoring a whole lot, he's still playing really well. Alan St. Maximin was really their only player that anybody had any real thought of last year. And I believe he's kind of battling some injuries, but he's a good, solid player, but they don't need to rely on him like they used to before. And I think that, though, you have to really give the credit to Eddie Howe, excuse me, Eddie Pope. Sorry, I'm still thinking MLS. You had MLS. That was the first game I went to at MLS. I watched Eddie Pope play. But you got to give credit to Eddie Howe. We really, really do. And I have been waving the Eddie Howe flag since he started at Bournemouth. I have been waving it. I thought I wanted Arsenal to get him. I thought he was a really good manager. And I think that it would be very, very idiotic, because I could see a club like you could see one of these clubs now who think they're a big club doing this, where they'll take a guy like Eddie Howe, who helps bring them up, and then they feel like they have to get a bigger name to put them on the next level, and they end up firing him when the first chance they get. Let's say they lose 3 or 4 in a row, which happens to anybody. Any team can lose 3 or 4 in a row, except for Manchester City. And you can see it happening, and then them firing Eddie Howe. That would be a travesty. But I really think that you have to give him a lot of the credit here. And you talked about Almiron. What he's getting from Almiron is something that no one's been able to get from him. And he's been in the Premier League for a good 3 years now, 3 full years. I think he's been in the Premier League. So,
yeah, it's up there.
Yeah. So, good on you. It bothers me. It does. It really does. He's like, dang. Because, can your team be bought by a country? Can your team be bought by a multinational corporation that has pockets that have no stitching to it? Can you get them to buy your team? If you can, then you can win Champions League if you're not Bayern Munich.
I think the thing with England is that they have to make Champions League first. In order to make Champions League, you got to spend major money, because everybody above them is spending major money. The thing about this roster is it's not like a giant superstar that they got.
Isak is the biggest signing that they've made.
Yeah,
basically. Yeah.
That is it, and they're winning with him. So the question now is, let's just say they make top 4. So they have Champions League coming up next season. Do they strengthen the squad the way they've been doing it, or do they now go up for a major superstar? Do you now go for players who are available? Do you go for people who are out of contract? Yeah, like a Conte. You go for somebody like a Harry Kane who only has 1 year left. Yeah. Do they splash the money? Because they do have it.
They do have it.
And the Saudis probably want to make major noise in Champions League. The question is, though, is Eddie Howe ready for Champions League? We don't know that yet.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Is that because I think it's easy to get overwhelmed by Champions League. And I think if you really look at it, though, you have 6 group stage games, 16 quarterfinal. So I think 2 16s, 2 quarterfinals, 2 semifinals. So you're looking at about 11 or 12 games. That's not a whole lot of games. And that's if you final. Yeah. It's not a whole lot of games.
Not a lot.
So, and we've seen other teams, Leicester had success. They got to the quarterfinals. They had success. I think that is a successful Champions League run as a quarterfinal for any team that's not one of the big 4 or 5 teams in the world. If Arsenal quarterfinals, you don't think I'll be happy? How many times we lost in a round of 16? If we get Champions League quarterfinal, I'm gonna be like, all right, I'll take it. So, but it's funny though. You bring up big contracts. Well, our buddy Al, this is all for you, man. Al was doing some digging to determine what was the attraction for Ronaldo to go to Al Nasser in Saudi Arabia. Now, of course, you can look at the contract itself and say, well, the contract's worth 770 million euros or something like that. Of course, he'll go there for 4 years. But then you got to think about what I was always wondering was, Ronaldo is clearly a guy who wants records. He wants individual accomplishments. He wants trophies, and he wants them to take place in the best leagues. As I believe you pointed out, other people pointed out, I'm not sure how happy Ronaldo's going to be playing in the Asian Champions League when he has to travel to a team in Uzbekistan and take a 6-hour flight and then travel to a team in South Korea, which I can imagine from Saudi Arabia to South Korea is probably not a 6-hour flight. I imagine it's probably much, much, much farther than that. So what's the lure? Well, as Al was able to find out, which I think if you kind of put two and two together, you can kind of determine this, but the same people who own Al Nassr also own Newcastle. And there's appears to be, of course, I have not followed up on this. I'm just relaying what was told to me that I found to be interesting and entirely plausible, is that if Newcastle finish top four, qualify for Champions League, Ronaldo can be loaned to Newcastle and play Champions League. And you think about it and go, let's take the idea of the club, the stature of the club out. Let's take the fact that it's Newcastle out of the equation. Let's just take that out. And now it is simply an English team that is qualified for Champions League that's going to be guaranteed 6 games. Guaranteed 6 games. And as we've seen, more often than not, English teams will at least make the knockout stage. Especially if you can get in a group with, a qualifier from the teams that compete for these compete for these spots that are from Latvia, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary. You get one of those in your club, Moldova. And then you get fourth place or third or second place team from Spain who you can compete with. And you might get FC Copenhagen. Now you're sitting there going, okay, we're in a pretty winnable group here. We can get out of this group. We can get to the knockout. We can get to the quarterfinals. So that's another 2 games. That gives 8 games for Ronaldo to do what all he really seems to want to do, which is keep Messi from breaking his goal scoring record for Champions League. Even though it should be more worried about now Erling Haaland or Kylian Mbappe breaking it, because there's going to be more games coming up. But that makes entirely too much sense to me now. What do you think of that? What do you think of Ronaldo going down there? Because I was always like, okay, I guess he's 37. He can make so much more money. Now, granted, he can not easily, he can make 100 million euros a year if he came to the United States and played MLS. He could, because all the sponsorship deals he'll get, these companies, he'll be throwing money at him left and right because everybody knows who he is.
So it makes sense. Like you said, Ronaldo doesn't want to go to play Asia Champions League in Japan, in Tokyo, and or in India or Korea or whatever. Look, at the end of the day, Ronaldo has nothing to prove. The only thing he had left to prove is to win a World Cup, which he hasn't done. All right, he's won a ton of Champions Leagues with 2 clubs, in United and Real Madrid. He's won a ton of Ballon d'Ors. He's scored a ton of goals, a ton of important goals. He's won a big trophy with Portugal, even though he didn't play in the final, much of it. The World Cup's eluded him, but that's not a club trophy. He has nothing left to prove. So when I first saw the signing, to me, it was like, look, let him get his money. Let him enjoy. Look, if somebody wants to pay him
25 million, let him get another 700.
If somebody wants to pay him all that cash to kick around a ball in Saudi Arabia, then so be it. Look, but it does having a Newcastle deal potentially as the question is though, all right, here's the thing: Newcastle looks like it's going to make top 4. There's a chance they might.
To me too. Yeah.
They look. For all we know, they might not. They're Spurs are only 4 points out.
Right.
And Spurs sit in the Europa League spot. But let's just say it happens. Does Eddie Howe really want Ronaldo there? You saw what he did with Ten Hag. If Eddie Howe had this nice collection of players, everyone's playing together, everyone's chipping in their work, and all of a sudden you throw in a a Ronaldo in there who's going to pout? Is Eddie Howe going to stand up to Ronaldo when he walks away from the pitch?
Yeah.
And then here's the problem. What if Eddie Howe tries to make moves? MBS is going to be on the phone, be like, nah, I pay for this guy. He plays.
He plays.
I don't care if he shows up an hourly.
Yep.
I don't care when you sub him out. I don't care if he walks away from the pitch.
I've sold 100,000 Newcastle jerseys because of him.
Exactly.
He's
he
playing.
You know what I'm saying? Eddie Howe is probably, look, I don't know what he's been told. We don't know how official this is. Like you said before, the dots are there to be connected. But man, it would be, look, it'll be a typical Newcastle fashion for them to actually put something together really well and blow it all up by making a stupid move like bringing Ronaldo in alone. It really would be. It'd be like, it would just be terrible. Like,
yeah.
To me, like,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying, like, I remember when Leicester won the league, and I was like, you know what? They have a good squad. They solidified a little bit. They can maybe make it a really run in Champions League and solidify themselves as potentially top 4, top 5. Well, what happens is Chelsea comes knocking and takes one of the best players and then N'Golo Kante. Then it's over. Then they had to play Champions League without one of the big reasons why he's
the main reason why they got there. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. You talk about Jamie Vardy, but to me, N'Golo Kante.
No, it was N'Golo Kante.
N'Golo Kante was the reason, right?
Reason. Absolutely.
And then a year later, Mars is gone, and so so to me, like, it would be a travesty to see a club like Newcastle, who's loved by many, the Magpies, who's loved so much by Ray Hudson. Love him or hate him, Ray Hudson is a legendary commentator.
He is legendary, absolutely.
But loves Newcastle with all his might. And they have history, and so for them to potentially get Ronaldo in there, would be awful. It would be really bad. But and now Eddie Howe's going to lose his hair.
Yeah, and then they'll do what I said would be a horrible move. Is they'll fire Eddie Howe and they'll go bring in like Jose Mourinho.
Did Eddie Howe go to Spurs and the Spurs would be top 4?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because Conte apparently is frustrated as well.
Well, he's been there for a while. It's usually when he's about to wear out his welcome that he goes.
Yeah, no, Conte's like flipping out a little bit. I don't know. The sun's just been blah for some reason. I don't know. So one more thing on Newcastle. So their last game was against Leeds, and they played at home. And I don't know if it says much more about Newcastle or much more about Leeds that this was a draw in Newcastle. Leeds played well. But my favorite part, by the way, of this whole game, because there was no goals to be had. My favorite part of the game was around the 80th minute or so, or 85th or whatever minute it was. Murphy tries to pick up the ball for Newcastle. And Tyler Adams has a ball by his feet, kicks his ball to hit the ball next to Murphy. And then Murphy can't pick up the ball because the ball's gone. Because it's pure shithousery. Find the video. It's classic. That's my captain. I love Tyler Adams.
Yep.
That was the most exciting part of the game. But so Stead, so the question is, for me to you is, because you saw that game, is Arteta and Arsenal smelling blood that they're going to take 3 points here?
Yeah, they are. Because I actually think that the game that actually made me the most nervous was the one they just played. Brighton is having a pretty decent year. But Brighton has also proved that they are very difficult to beat. They don't go away. They're not easy to play against. And Arsenal beat them up pretty good. Started to falter late, which tends to happen when you're up by 3 goals. You can see a team like Brighton who's not just going to go away and fold. They'll steal one back. But I think, though, what you saw with the Leeds game is you saw how to frustrate Newcastle. You saw how to frustrate them. And Arsenal has done the one thing that I've seen that's changed the most this year with this team over previous years is they're learning how to play ugly games. And I think if Arsenal says, look, we're at home, we can play a little ugly with them, get them out of the game, and we're going to score 3. I actually could see that happening. I could see Arsenal win this game 3-0. I could. I think this Arsenal team is playing with more faith in themselves than I've ever seen consistently. Because you got to remember, the last time this team was showing this type of form, we weren't getting games every week. You get occasionally, you get to see a Premier League game, and it might be Arsenal, it might not. And usually I was subscribing to arsenal.com or arsenal.co.uk, and I would get a 10-minute highlight package. That was the only way I could see games. And again, you weren't even seeing the whole game. So the fact that we're able to watch this team consistently, I've never seen this before, ever. And this is beyond exciting. But we have to keep it in perspective. This is still only game number 17. Keep that in perspective. You know, Arsenal, you have a lot of games left to play, and you've been lucky enough to avoid Manchester City up to this point. You've avoided them. And Manchester City has dropped points on more than one occasion recently. They've been dropping points. So if you look at their last 5, you know, City's dropped 4 points in the last 5 games.
It's a gift.
Yeah, it is. It's an absolute gift. It is an absolute gift. The last 5 games, the best team in the last 5 games is Arsenal. The second best team is Newcastle. The third best team in the last 5 games is Manchester United.
Yeah. They're rising up, man. Those United boys, man.
All I'm saying is, look, we lost to Man U. I was very angry about that game, but I understood it because Arsenal cannot go to Old Trafford and play. If Old Trafford gets renovated, like Mike thinks they need to be, which you know it will be, maybe that will change the juju in that. I hope so, because Arsenal cannot play at that stadium. It drives me nuts. They can't play there. If you're looking at that squad saying, okay, this team is winning ugly games. You've only dropped 4 points all season long. You've only dropped 4 points. You have 3 more wins than everybody else. You have 3 more wins. Don't do anything stupid. And because what scares me to death is something that happens to Arsenal every year is that March skid where they lose 3 in a row. And they'll lose, let's say, I mean, before it would be Watford, Stoke, Wigan would steal one, you know, those types of teams. And this year it'll be something like Bournemouth,
Everton,
and Leicester. They'll lose like to those 3 teams. And you're just sitting there going, they're bottom half of the table. Why are you losing these games? And so that's what I just don't want to happen. And look, Man City has gift wrapped at Arsenal a loss. They're basically saying, look, you guys can play us, and you could just be like, look, we'll try, but won't we see this getting out of hand, we're not even going to worry about it. Y'all go ahead. Yeah, we only got to play y'all twice. You guys go ahead. And if they can hold serve against everybody else. But again, I still think it's too early for Arsenal fans to start saying we're going to win the league. No, too early.
Yeah. So look, you got here the fixtures. This is a crazy stretch for you guys.
It is absolutely.
You got Newcastle at home. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then you got Spurs in Spurs.
Yeah. Good. Play them now. Play them when they're in disarray. They're struggling right now. Play them now.
Like, here's one thing about rivalry games and derbies, right? Derby games, look, the team could be awful that year, but when it's a derby, things change.
Things change.
Look, what's going to happen is, for all you know, Kane's going to score 2 goals. One's going to be a penalty, and Son's going to score like a whirler.
Hey, look, I remember a game where Spurs were up, and Arsenal had a red card. They were playing down 10, and they were getting ran over the field, and Alexis Sanchez got a quick run and stole a draw. Yeah. So anything can happen.
Yeah, no, anything can happen. So that's a tough game just because it's a derby. Yeah. Then you got United, a different United that you played, before, minus Ronaldo, right?
Yeah, which is probably They're probably better without.
Yeah, they are
They're
better.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely better. But now at least you're at home.
Yeah.
Then you got your trap game against Everton in in Liverpool.
Yep.
And then you got then you got Brentford. At home. You got Brentford at home, but Brentford just smacked Liverpool.
I was gonna say that's the team nobody wants to play right now. Nope. You don't want to. Ivan Toney. Okay, top 10 goal scorers in Europe. Ivan Toney's ranked 10th.
Yeah.
He's ranked 10th out of the top 10 goal scorers in all of Europe. He scored 20 goals so far this year for league and cup games. 20 goals. And they're not even playing in Europe. So he's doing something special over there. He probably should have got the call up. It's a shame that he didn't. And there's something in the water over there because they're playing with serious confidence. They had no fear of Liverpool.
No,
none.
No,
they came out and they were like, "Let's go, let's go."
I think Virgil van Dijk got subbed out at halftime.
Yeah, he did.
What did that happen? Your top defender.
And Klopp was griping about the refs.
Oh, all right, Jesus Christ.
I'm just saying, man. When you get that's a sign that you got smacked. When you start griping about officiating, that you got smacked.
Yeah, you don't want Brentford. You don't want that smoke from Brentford. You don't want they got stung today.
No.
And this is what I was trying to get at with the Arsenal schedule, because then after Brentford, which is no guarantee at all, no matter where you're playing, then you got City at the Emirates.
Yeah.
And so I think when
it's a makeup game, so and they're squeezing that game in.
They're squeezing. Yeah, it's a Wednesday game after a Saturday game, and then you got another Saturday game following. So
and then they're back in Europa League.
And then exactly. So what I'm trying to say is, Arsenal need a hope that by the time they get to the City game, they're still 7 points up. You got to be 7 points up still, because right now you're 7 points, right?
Yeah.
So you can't drop points here, and you drop a point, you better hope City drop a point, because if you're within 3 points of that City game, it's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are, look, I know there are Arsenal fans right now. There's a lot of gooners out there in the world who are saying, this is our title. We're marching. Like, nope, you need to wait till that City game.
I'll tell you this though, those are the smallest fans make the most noise. That's a minority. That's a minority. I'm telling you, most Arsenal fans, we're happy, but we are like, we're
nervous.
We're nervous.
Yeah,
I'm nervous because like you heard us. Every one of us at the start of the season was like, we have a legit shot at top 4. That's what everybody was saying. We have a legit shot at top 4, and people are like, some people were like, no, some people were like, yeah. And now you're sitting there 7 points up and you're about halfway through the season. And it's so quick how fast people can change their mind on what the goal of the season is. But I was like, you can't lose sight of the fact that you're still one more transfer window away from really being a good team that can really compete in Europe. Because league, if you can win a league, that's it. You're set. You're going to get the players you want. You're going to get the money. You're going to get everything. I'll buy another jersey. You're going to get it if you can win the league. But if you qualify for Champions League, you're a big enough club that can still happen. That can still happen. You've had a Champions League for like 4 or 5 years now. That's way too long for a club like Arsenal. You cannot be out of Champions League. And Arsenal has a terrible record in Europe. Terrible. Arsenal has the same number of times in Champions League as Spurs. Once. That's it. Now you final Europa League a few times, but you've had one final, and you could have won that game if it wasn't for Jens Lehmann getting a red card by fouling Samuel Eto'o in the early first half. And they scored first that game too. Sol Campbell scored a header, lost 2-1.
I know that game went to right.
Oh, and that's what we knew. Oh, so he's going to the enemy.
So folks who are listening, the Arsenal City game, Wednesday, February 15th, circle that, take off. It's 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. Call out. This is probably one of the games you're looking forward to.
Yeah.
Because that has major title implication. Because if Arsenal squeak one out and win it, to me, then you start to visualize the trophy.
Yeah.
The trophy becomes a little bit clearer.
Draw.
If you could get a draw,
I think if you
escape.
could get a draw,
Yeah, escape.
I think. Look, the one thing Arsenal has going for them in this game is you have someone who can physically match Erling Haaland. William Saliba physically can match Erling Haaland. They're the same age, same size, same speed. Saliba could at least D him up. I'm not saying Haaland's not going to score because he always scores. But at least maybe you can frustrate him. You can try to get him out of the game, make it harder for De Bruyne to get the ball to him. Something. And hopefully, he gets frustrated and they bring on our good buddy Larry's boy. Bring on Jack Grealish. And, he just dribbles on the side. He just dribbles up and down the wing a few times, like waiting to get fouled, and that'll be it.
with his giant calves. So when does Gabriel Jesus come back?
He comes back in early February. He might be back for that game, but if he is, he probably won't start.
He won't start.
I don't think he'll start. Won't start. I can tell you really quickly when he's coming back, but I don't see him starting that game. Yeah, I don't.
That's a bummer, man, because he was doing so well.
He was doing well. He was doing really well.
Martin Odegaard, man, just a maestro, man.
Apparently now they're looking at his buyback clause. Apparently he's got a buyback clause
with Real Madrid.
I didn't read the full story, but Lord. It was kicked around. They're like, wait a minute, is there a buyback clause? There's a buyback clause. You got to be kidding me. I think it's something astronomical, but you got to be kidding me. That guy, he's your captain. He's not going to go. He's not going to go.
Yeah, can you imagine that? Can you imagine him like winning the league in the Premier League, the quote unquote best league in the world, and then he's like, I'm out.
Yeah. Oh no, Jesus will be back February 26th, so he'll miss the game.
It's a bummer too.
Yeah, but we'll have ESR back, and that's a big one. Emil Smith-Rowe back is big. That guy's pacey. He's big. He's solid. He can keep the ball at his feet, and he can score goals. He's proven he can score goals. So I think that'll be a big game, big game.
That'll be fun. The other game's kind of blah tomorrow. Everton, Brighton, blah. Leicester, Fulham. If you're an American, watch Fulham and Tim Ream and watch Tim Ream go off. All right, Tim Ream is played the best he's ever played in his life, and he's 35 years old. Yeah,
well, hopefully Vardy can get some playing time. The two old guys can go out and kick each other in the ankles a little bit. Let us see if Vardy's still got. I think Vardy might be hanging him up pretty soon. He sees the end of Leicester. Leicester's. It's sad what's happening to that club. It really is. I think when what's his name? The goalie.
Schmeichel.
Michael Casper. When Casper Schmeichel left, that should have been the sign that there's something really wrong at Leicester. That should have been it, because he was a lifer there, and the fact that he was like, all right, bye, and as a guy who gave everything to that club, that was sad. But I do think though, a fun game to watch Premier League is on Wednesday when you have Leeds West Ham. That's going to be a fun game to watch. Unless Leeds decides to not try and score, which I hope they don't do. But, West Ham has had some pretty bad luck this year. They've dropped their last 5, and yet they've actually haven't looked bad, but they just can't seem to get on the scoring board. I mean, they've only scored 13 goals. I mean, it's not good what's happening with them.
In Leeds, man, obviously I pay attention to Leeds because of Jesse Marsh and Tyler Adams and Brendan Aronson. But to me, when they drew Newcastle, that was a miracle in itself.
Yeah.
But man, they escape away with 3 points. It's going to help them really remain up, because I think that they really got to remain up. They need more Premier League money to get reinforcements, because their defense is just shoddy. Yeah, and also they're getting to the point of the season where they're going to get gassed. This is where a lot of running, it's going to do them in. and they're not gonna have anybody really to back them up. The bench is very thin.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. But from a bias point of view, my game is a 3 o'clock game on Wednesday the 4th, which is Palace and Spurs.
Yeah.
Um,
Come on, Palace. And not just because they're playing Spurs. We talked about going to other games. I've heard that Palace is the place to watch a game.
yeah,
I've
it's
heard
a small,
crazy.
it's a London stadium.
Yeah, but it's like it's south, so it's not like directly in the middle. Yeah,
yeah, and also it's a very intimate feel stadium. It's very old school in that way. A lot of history there, and for you Ted Lasso fans, that's where they do some filming for Ted Lasso as well. Selhurst Park, great venue to go to. But man, please do not get 2 red cards. Please, poor Chris Richards. Patrick Vieira's club gets 2 red cards, and Chris Richards comes back from injury for the first time in forever. And here you go, kid. We're down 2 men. Go out there and play center back.
Yeah.
That was not fun.
Yeah.
But Spurs need this win. They need this win because, and if they score first, they need to hold the lead because, my goodness, it's like they're Jekyll and Hyde. They play good one half, and the other half they're crap, and vice versa. I don't know.
Yeah.
They really do need this win because, you don't. To me, you're spending. There's a lot of money on the table, and you can't not make Europe somehow. Your Spurs, you have to make Europe.
You got to make Europe. Yeah, you got to make Europe. If you don't make Europe with the squad that you have, I mean, when Arsenal play Spurs, they have the 2 best players in the field. Spurs do. They already do. Harry Kane and Son Heung-min are better than everybody on Arsenal. They are. I will admit that. They also have a better goalie. So clearly something's not right at Spurs right now, considering the way they're dropping points. I mean, Spurs are now sitting in, I believe, the last Europa League spot. If I'm correct, they're 6th.
Well, the only one. So Europa is.
Oh, so they're 5th. Okay, so okay, yeah. So
I think
but 6th will. Yeah, 6th will. It's not guaranteed, but there's a way for the 6th place team to get it. I forgot how because it changes every year with Europa League. But now 6th is Liverpool, but you got Brentford at 7th. So if Spurs, though, with the squad that they have, if they don't qualify for Europe, that's a failed season. That's a failed season. You have a multiple championship winning coach. You have a multiple time Golden Boot winner. You have the best player to ever come out of Korea. The best player to ever come out of Korea. And I used to be Park Ji-sung, but now I'm saying it's Son Heung-min. And you have spent a lot of money to keep on that squad. They spent a lot of money. And their payroll is equal to Arsenal's, if not a little bit more. So if you don't qualify for Europe as a club, and look, I'm not a Spurs hater. I don't supposed to be, but I'm not a Spurs hater. But Spurs have not been consequential when it comes to winning cups and championships until relatively recently. It happened every now and then. I believe they won the Man City Cup in 06, and that's kind of been it for the last 20 years. They have not been consequential in that area. So this has been Spurs' relatively golden generation. They qualified for Europe on more than one occasion, back to back to back. Arsenal had 18 or 19 straight seasons where they finished above Spurs. And so Spurs has finally kind of leapfrogged Arsenal for a little bit in that respect until this season. If you don't qualify this year for Champions League, not Europa League, for Champions League, that's a failed season for Spurs. They need to really be careful. They do. They're showing that there's a lot of cracks. And as what you pointed out already, it seems like Conte has reached the end of his typical tenure with an English team and might be on his way out. And that would spell disaster for them.
Yeah, at this point with Spurs, they gotta make Europe because at this point, they don't. do you blow it up? Do Kane has to go?
Kane goes.
Kane goes.
Yeah. You might be able to keep Son because Son's 30. He might stay.
I think Son, Son has a deal till 2025.
Yeah.
So he'll be there for a little bit. Perisic is getting up there in age. He's gone after in 2024, one more year.
Yeah.
I think Hugo
Lloris is like 38.
Lloris is
like
gone.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like Eric Dyer.
Yeah.
Those players, like they're just gonna go. I mean, if we gonna build around Højbjerg, I know he's good and all, but
Ryan Sessegnon, he can't even get off the bench, man. What are you gonna do?
Lucas Moura can't get off the bench.
Yeah. So yeah, they this is a bigger game. Look, Palace won 3 of the last 5. Vieira is looking like a quality coach, and Palace better keep him as long as they can. And that's a tough team. You're seeing he's getting something out of G's boy that he's having a renaissance of sorts. He's playing very well. I don't remember his name. I'm for some reason I'm really bad with names that I'm on the podcast.
What, Zaha?
Zaha, thank you. Yeah.
Wilfred?
Yeah, Wilfred's he's playing well. He's playing very well. But Easy's a good player on the squad, who has done well. You've seen what he did with Conor Gallagher last year. So Vieira is a damn good coach. But Palace is sitting in 11th. They got 22 points. Like, think about it. Palace is closer to Spurs than Spurs are to Arsenal.
This is Zaha's. He's on his last year on a deal. So Zaha, this might be a swan song for Palace. Unfortunately, legend came over the club, which was I think he's still a quality player to contribute. So no, it's a big game. It's a London derby, but it's like we said, Spurs need points. Palace really need points because I think they're better than where they are. But it should be fun. But look, a lot of good matches, and the one thing that's awful is that I can't speak for you, but for a lot of us, we work during the day and we're gonna miss these quality matches.
Yeah,
to this thing.
I'm getting lucky right now because the weather's still cold. Because I think it's my current position, which will last for a little while longer till the days start getting long again. But I'll try to catch these games definitely. But we're talking about the saturation of the schedule in the Premier League, and it's just as bad, if not even worse, in Spain. You're looking at Spain's they ended on November 10th for the World Cup. They came back the 29th. So they have games, and that's only match day 15. It was December 29th. That was match day 15. That's it. So they have games now on Friday. This 16 is a Friday to Monday, and then they're still able to go Friday to Monday. But you got to wonder, when are these games going to get done? Because to just think you're only going to be playing games on weekends here on out, that's not going to work with this many fixtures left. It's going to start getting tight, and it looks like February starts to get a little tighter for Spain. But not only that, Spain's got some other problems right now. La Liga has some issues outside of Barcelona and Real Madrid. It seems like, well, not necessarily Real Madrid, but it seems like there are continued issues around this Barcelona squad. Lewandowski got into some drama recently with the match official and everything like that. Game at Espanyol, which is a derby game, which of course has always been quite contested. But then you have Vinicius also continuing to call out the situation with the consistent racist behavior that he's being subject to, not just on social media, but also in stadiums. So, my initial reaction is that if I played in Spain as a black dude, I would boycott social media. I just wouldn't get on it. I wouldn't get on it because I can imagine that you're going to get a bunch of monkeys and bananas and things like that all over the place from various cowards who, find that as a way to get their, get an erection, I'd say. Or you have the guys in the stadiums who there's 50,000 of them in there, and they're throwing bananas on the field. They're calling you names and stuff like that because they don't like the way you dance. It seems as if, though, these clubs don't have too much of an issue because, again, any of it is La Liga, because what seems to happen whenever this gets reported, they find these teams, 10, 20,000 euros, which is like finding me $1.50. And then it just keeps going about. So, I mean, long term, when you look at this has been, I mean, Samuel went on about this for forever when he was in Spain. And then you're seeing the situation with Barcelona's finances, where it looks like this club might not exist in the same way as they're selling off all their assets in the next 5 to 10 years, so they could hopefully win now, and they're already out of Champions League. And then you have the biggest club in the world. Are they really supporting their black players when they have no problems bringing them in and having them play and win championships for them? So is this a Spain issue? Is this a La Liga issue? And do you see any way, shape, or form this is going to be rectified? Because personally, I don't, but I'd love to get your perspective on that.
It won't, because the powers that be are not black. simple as
That's
that.
a great way to put it. Speak more with it.
They're not. They're not black. They never experienced, the racism that Vinicius Jr. had encountered. What is gonna happen? What needs to happen is when Vinicius Jr. encounters it, he needs to go to the ref and needs to make an approach. Say, look, this is happening, and he needs to point it out. And then what's supposed to happen is, the ref is supposed to stop the game. And there's supposed to be an announcement, like, behave yourself, blah, 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 like a warning or whatever. But, La Liga doesn't want to hear that. They want to, keep it out, they want to play football, right? Just play football and shut up.
Mm-hmm.
But what Vinicius Jr. needs to do is just walk out the field. Just say, look, you know what? I'm done. And the players in Real Madrid need to join him.
Yeah.
You need to look, we're done. And I don't even care. La Liga tries to play hardball, be like, we're going to deduct points from you because you've been in a match. No, you know what? Then that's what it is. Let that be the story.
Right.
Let the story be that La Liga, instead of punishing racism by fans, outing them in public, that instead they rather, fine or punish a team who we made a stand against racism. And, and that'll be the story. And, people on Twitter and social media will hate on Real for doing it, but it needs to be done because, the technology exists, the personnel exists to identify these behaviors. Look, when we had a World Cup where Qatar had 1,000 of cameras all over the stadium to identify hooliganism and all that. They didn't need it, thank goodness. But the technology exists. You telling me that Qatar can do it, but like La Liga, who has made a ton of money off Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Bilbao, and the rest of them, that they can't afford to put in systems in place where they can identify this and take care of it. They can, but they won't, and they're not black. They speak Spanish, but they're not like my Spanish.
You're right.
They're the conquistadors. They're they're Europe. They don't view themselves as a minority group. Here in America, Latinos and blacks are one of the big minority groups here, who have encountered most racism.
Right.
But in La Liga, they're like, the power that be are simply, they're ignorant to that. They don't encounter it, so it doesn't exist to them.
Right.
And Vinicius Jr., he made a point in talking about it, and it's happened before. It happened at Atletico earlier this season to Vinicius, to the same player. So apparently, him speaking out about it is, antagonizing the races, and then instead of the league, stamping that out, they just turn a blind eye and go about their business.
Yeah, I have to agree. I actually think that I don't think it's going to end either, and I think it's not going to end because I truly don't think people from Spain think that they're doing anything wrong. I don't believe that they think that this behavior is something that is morally reprehensible. I don't think they do. I mean, one thing that we were saying about a lot of this when this was going on in England was, a number of years ago, is that, they never had a civil rights movement. And a country like Spain that also does have a pretty positive record of immigration from Africa versus other countries in Europe. And they'll tell you that time and time and time again, they will tell you that. But the fact that it can be considered part of everyday vernacular to do these at stadiums, and if the players didn't say anything, it wouldn't be identified at all, is really it's really why I don't think it's just going to stop, because who's really going to be identifying it? You're going to have you're going to have 4 or 5 players of African descent are going to be saying something on the field versus the match officials, the trainers, the other players who, I don't think the other players actually care that much. I really don't. I think they're those kinds of people who will go up to him after the game in private and say, hey, just so you know, I don't think that's right. Which is what a lot of people do. When a buddy of yours faces something negative, but you really don't care that much about it, you say something after the fact. And I just think that's what's perpetuating this. And I don't think it's going to end. I don't think it's going to end at all. It's kind of one of those things where the people that think this is okay have to just die off. And as they die off and younger people come up who have a different mentality, who are growing up in a world that's a little bit more intertwined, are going to be much less likely to behave in that manner. That's what I think is going to have to happen. I mean, I was in Italy not that long ago, and I can tell you from the bat, I was treated differently based on how old the person was I was talking to. It was night and day. Younger people just seem to be more comfortable because they were used to people that looked like me being around. And for those of you who are listening and not watching this on YouTube, I'll tell you right now, I am not a very dark-skinned person for a Black person. I'm not. I'm very light. So the fact that I was noticing a difference lets me know that I just don't think you can stamp this type of thing out with kneeling at the start of the game. That does nothing. And Wilfred Zaha, I applaud you for not kneeling. I think that I appreciate the technology. I think that should be implemented to get something that's very blatant, like throwing something on the field because that could actually injure someone. Yeah, get that person out of there. But as far as the treatment, especially the treatment on social media, I mean, to expect a social media company to actually take the time to figure out who the individuals are who were doing this, and then figuring out a way to punish them beyond simply banning their account when they can just go make a new one under a different email address.
Yep.
It just doesn't seem like it's ever going to stop. So I know earlier on I was really I was passionate about it. I wouldn't say passionate, but I did say something about it a lot. And I'm at the point now where I'm going, am I just feeding the trolls by continuing to talk about this? Am I just feeding them? Am I just making them even not emboldened, but just the fact that I'm talking about them might be enough to make them continue because I'm discussing them. It might be better to, I remember Moise Keane was playing Cagliari, playing against them, and he put in a goal at the end of the game to win, and he just stood and looked at the fans who were just killing him. And he just looked at him, and I was like, that made me smile because he just stood there like this. Yeah. You can yell at me all you want. I just scored. Y'all lost. Go home. Like I kind of feel that may be the best way to handle this.
And at the end of the day, those people paid money to watch him play.
Exactly. Exactly.
I just to end it, I wish like more Black players, see what's happening to Vinicius and say, you know what, I don't want to go to La Liga,
right?
Because and be like, I don't want to play there because of how they're going to treat me. Like for example, Real Madrid signed this young kid, 16 years old, Endrick, who played for Palmeiras. He's going to come over in a couple of years. In 2024 to be specific. And he's Black. And if he said like, if somebody like him said, you know what, I don't want to come to La Liga, and the reason I'm not coming to La Liga, and as much as I love Real Madrid, it's my favorite club in the world, I want to go there, but I will not go there because La Liga refuses to do something about racism.
Right.
People like me.
Yeah.
I mean, that would do something.
That would do something. It would do something. Yeah.
It would do something. It would be a nice stand to show, and maybe, because Endrick, as young as he is starting to become a worldwide name, and so he's gonna potentially be a superstar. But
and he could easily go to Bayern.
yeah. Hey, we have a history with Brazilians. We have Brazilians and black Brazilians.
Yeah.
Z Roberto, for all those who don't know.
Yeah.
Giovanni Elber, and Dante as well.
Oh yeah, Dante.
Yeah, he poor guy. I love him to death. What a trouble. But so I wish that were to happen, but like you and I know, nothing will change. And at the end of the day, we're gonna watch more La Liga games.
Yeah, it's hard not to, because especially in with Champions League, it's just, look, Spain and Europe, man, they just play well. They just got it. They got it. Their record, especially in finals for Europa League and Champions League, and it's not just Sevilla, Real Madrid, and Barcelona. Atletico has played well. Valencia has played well. Villarreal's played well. So they're difficult teams to play against. But we'll wrap that up. I just want to talk about one more thing. This happened a couple of weeks ago, but I feel like I should say something, considering he used to play for a team the team that I support. But it's being a US soccer fan and watching the US men's national team for as number of years as I've been watching them, going to US national team games. When you get to the World Cup, it's almost like, as an American, you have to have your other team. So who's the other team that you support outside of the United States? And for me, since '98, it's been France. France has been the team that's my Europe team, is France. And so I was devastated, not devastated, but I was upset in '06. I was actually in France for the '06 Cup. And then with this final here, France's record has just been in the World Cup since 2000. It's been phenomenal. I mean, they're doing what Germany does. This is German type of international play right here. What France has been doing. And they lose a shootout to a goalkeeper who's proven to be a very, very good shot stopper, especially a spot kick stopper. He's good. He did it for Arsenal, and he did it for Argentina. But it's Emi Martinez and his behavior after the game and during the parade and everything like that, and his reasons for doing it. I have my opinion about it, but I'm gonna let you go first. But is this a whole lot of hoopla about nothing, or should Emi really go look in the mirror?
All right. So the two issues that happened here with Emi. Number one, putting the golden glove by his crotch.
Make a humping gesture. Yeah.
Look, let me tell you. Died laughing.
Yeah.
Died. I'm sorry.
But you wouldn't have seen your boy Neuer do that. Manuel Neuer would not have done that.
Well, Manuel Neuer.
And he won the last one. No, he won the 1-2-1.
No, Manuel Neuer doesn't have a sense of humor. He's a robot. The only thing controversial about Manuel Neuer, and that he does a little bit quirky, is that he's like the Leonardo DiCaprio of football. He has partners and girlfriends who are much younger than he is.
I can't say. If you can, you can. I mean,
that's look, she's going to turn 25, and he's going to get a new one. That's how it works. So look, Emi Martinez died laughing. I think especially the photo, whoever took the photo, I wish I knew the name of the journalist, but took the photo with one of the Qatari officials looking in stunned shock. I was like, this is great. They're not used to the type of humor whatsoever. So I enjoyed it. So the other thing that we're going to talk about is he got a hold of a doll that had Mbappe's face on there on the bus. So what I've been told and been reading is that that was not his. Someone threw that at him, and he held it. Now, to me, I don't know why he's holding it. Number one, I think it's dumb. But number two, look, Mbappe nearly won the freaking final for France. He's the last person you should be making fun of.
He scored on you 4 times.
Yeah, he had did he have a hat trick?
He had a hat trick. He had a hat trick. 3 spot kicks went in because he scored a spot kick for the shootout, but he scored 2 penalties, and he scored an open play goal, a phenomenal open play goal. And the second penalty he scored, he set that penalty up. That was his shot. that got the handball to set up the penalty. So yeah, I think
So no, Mbappe, like, are you really gonna make fun of Mbappe? Like, come on, the dude is superstar. He has his own speed. All right. Like, look, I mean, did you really beat Mbappe? He scored 3 times. He scored 3 times on you, Emmy Martinez.
Yeah.
Make it 4. You want to count the penalty. So, like, look, like, I mean, maybe if it was a picture of Benjamin Pavard, different story. I would get it.
Right.
But Mbappe, come on. Really, the wrong choice of player.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean, all I'm gonna say about this is I do think a part of me is like this is a whole lot of like, French journalists who are just a little butthurt that their team lost, which I totally understand, looking for a reason to be angry. But also, I mean, if anybody has seen Emmy Martinez over the past 5 or 6 years will know he's immature. He just is. He's immature.
He's a child.
He's a child. Yeah, he likes to talk a little bit. He talks a little too much trash in a weird way, because it's like, dude, this isn't a boxing match. Like what are you doing? It's a little odd. He likes to dance around. He likes to do the gamesmanship. It shouldn't, we shouldn't let it take away from his play. The guy's a good goalkeeper. He is. And, the sad thing is that he's playing for Aston Villa, which I think they paid 20 mil for him. So I guess that, that's a really good fee for a goalie, 20 million. That's a lot for a goalie. Especially a goalie not named Kepa. So it's something that you're like, I think I was a little bit more like, with it because it was France and that's kind of like my Europe team. But I think in the end, it's a whole lot of nothing. And, they were talking to with the names, Villa's coach, he used to coach Arsenal. Man, I'm gonna get Emery. So they're talking with him, and Unai Emery was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have a conversation with him about that kind of stuff." And I was like, I hope Emery was just saying that just to appease the media. You know what I mean? I hope that's the only reason why he was saying it, because Emmy is going to do Emmy stuff. He's immature. Granted, you hope he grows out of it. He's already 30 years old, but just whatever. I love the way Mbappe handled it. He was like, "Oh, well, I didn't even know. Who cares? I'm back at PSG. Let's just move on." And I think Mbappe is also, as you were saying about Ronaldo, he knows, at least he already has something to prove. This guy's already won a World Cup. He's already won the Golden Boot at a World Cup. He won the Young Player of the Year award the last World Cup, and had he won the game, he would have won the Golden Ball. Had he won the game, so Messi wouldn't have got it. He would have got it. So to think that Mbappe should care at all about what Emmy Martinez did after the game is also, I think it's a whole lot of nothing. But it was funny. It's kind of funny. And yes. When he did that, I laughed too. I thought that was kind of funny. I thought it was totally wrong, but I couldn't help but laugh. I thought it was funny.
I think people didn't remember it's a game.
It's a game.
They're not putting a man on the moon. All right, it's a game with a ball. Yeah, it's a game with a ball, and they wear shorts.
Yeah, it's a game a bunch of grown-ups like us can get away from our lives and watch and talk about once a week, man. That's all it is, relax.
Exactly. So
go hump the pole after you make your next save, man. Go ahead. Just go do it.
The French had no sense of humor besides that provocative magazine that they put out.
Yeah. So let's just let it go. But all right. Well, Rob, let me just say this to you, my friend. Thank you for coming on this week. I mean, I really wanted to get a show up because I know we were out for the holidays, and I know technically we're still in the holidays, but I wanted to get something up. So I really appreciate you coming on and help me fill the space. I thought we'd be on for an hour, and we're almost pushing 2 hours. So again, Rob, I really appreciate everything you've done since you've joined the show as well. Me and Mike know that we can always rely on you to come in and step in and help out and keep the trains running. That's why I gave you all the info. I was like, look, here it is, man. you deserve it. So again, thank you and Happy New Year to you, and really appreciate all the help you've been giving us.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk this game with like-minded folks. I enjoy it. I definitely do. I mean, it's either this or do a bedtime, and I'd rather do this.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, try to make sure this is my night off from bedtime. But so we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Before I do, I just want to say everyone Happy New Year. And if you actually are listening to this at this point in in the show, please make sure you're subscribing to whatever platform you happen to catch us on. We're on YouTube. We're on all of the major podcast platforms. So please check in with us. Share us with your friends. You can contact us at too-many-guys-soccer-show@gmail.com. I'm going to start saying that at the beginning of the show to make sure that gets out there. And also, I want to give a special shout out to Celtic Cam, home resting now, and he's on the mend. Hopefully, he'll get back on with us really soon. Cam, we're all thinking about you and wish you all the best. And let us know, as always, if anything we can do to help out. And Mike, hit some yoga, brother. That'll loosen you up. And hopefully we'll get you back out here next week. Hope you're feeling better soon. So for everybody on the Too Many Guys Soccer Show, and for Bundesliga Rob, I am Stead. And hopefully you did all right this week. We will do better next week. Good night, everybody.